Thank you very much for coming over. A very good evening to all of you. One area where there is almost a unanimous view where technology and data and analytics and digitization and IoT can significantly help, not just incremental help, but significantly help, is it's in this area of manufacturing, operations, supply chain. A resilient supply chain has become almost like a buzzword, but how do you actually build a resilient supply chain? You need to build it then a digital twin. You need to then figure out how you need to see the impact of that external environment on the digital twin, which you can then use in your physical world to take care and all that, right? So all of these are very, very interesting and very critical topics across. We have also seen disruptions from an ESG perspective, and the area which is the most impacted is the supply chain. I'll start off with you, Ganpati, and aviation sector, fairly complex, large machineries, lot of IoT data, very, very disrupted, and very, very high potential of getting disrupted.
Yeah.
So all the right ingredients for the subject which we are talking about. So it will be great to hear from you, Ganpati.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much and good evening to everyone. India is one of the largest market for Boeing. And from the supply chain perspective, we do over $1 billion from India. And also we have about 300 suppliers spread across entire region. Factory of tomorrow should be, in my opinion, it should address 3Ds. So the first D talk about dull. That means that the part which is kind of a repetitive, um, you know, so where there will be a lot of employee engagement or a workers engagement. The second one is dirty. That is a place where you need to address considering the current scenario, and also lastly the dangerous. How we have addressed that? We have adopted something on artificial intelligence and so also the machine learning. The supplier will be completely mapping the parts, and there is a golden sample. Against the golden samples there will be part compared. So every 1 minute there will be 30 to 40 parts are get approved. So that will be 100% inspection, because if you have to do a fastener kind of parts, 100% inspection is impossible. So that kind of artificial intelligence as well as machine learning related things are already started by us. Boeing has implemented something called additive manufacturing. We are almost in a transformation process, or you just transforming from the old or a traditional method to the industrial 4.0.
You talked about the 3Ds, which simplifies the whole thing, and
Yeah.
then you looked at the different aspects of how are you improving in each of these areas. How are you going to meet the energy security and energy needs of a country which is aiming to grow, and probably it's already the fifth largest, is going to go to become the third largest in 2030.
Manufacturing sector contributes around 15% of the GDP, and I think we have a big scope if we are able to tap the opportunities in the right fashion right now, considering the various opportunities which we are looking into. We are at a cusp of being moving from a developing country to a developed nation in a big way. One is that. Secondly, I think the kind of differentiation what we used to see between the manufacturing sector and services sector, it is kind of melting, and gradually most of the manufacturing units are likely to be a big networked enterprises, churning out big data analytics and having a kind of automized self-sustained manufacturing to be agile and adapted to the end customer requirement. So this is what is going to be the manufacturing at a very broad level from the futuristic point of view. Major trends which are going to drive the smart manufacturing of the future, what I feel are, firstly is definitely digitization. Second thing which I feel, IoT, which is going to be a kind of harbinger for smart manufacturing. Thirdly, I think another trend which is going to shape and going to be, we should be looking into is definitely artificial intelligence. Fourth thing which I feel is going to drive a major change is definitely the material sciences. Sustainability definitely is going to be one of the major topics which is going to drive smart manufacturing. Tier 1 suppliers or tier 2 suppliers, who are the backbone for the manufacturing units and contribute towards 70% of the products what we use in our manufacturing units, We need to be basically horizontally deploying all these good practices and make them come to that level, train them, handhold them to make sure that no weak link remains in this entire manufacturing chain.
Few things you mentioned which is very important. The first thing was more on the automation of certain mundane processes like the procure to pay you said, and other processes, and how does digitization help you in doing that kind of automation. But in addition to that, we are also talking about not just IoT for smart manufacturing but also IoT for smart collection of data from the customers. In addition to all the technological advances which we are seeing, where do you see the role of, say, IT or an IoT playing in some of these as an enabler in some of these innovations?
Steel industry globally contributes close to 7 odd percentage on the global emission, the CO2 emission. India today is close to 126 million ton operating capacity, and by 2030 we are targeting 300 million tons of steel. With that strike rate, we are going to generate 700 million tons of CO2. So it is 2.5 tons of CO2 per ton of crude steel. That is what is the number. So now steel industry is coming in hard to abate industry, and the focus right now, along with the ministry, is how green hydrogen can be an enabler to sort of reduce it. Journey is from gray to green, right? And I personally believe that the blue hydrogen, the blue part of it, has a important play for next 5 to 6 odd years, where it is going to mature. Because green hydrogen, there are challenges. The first challenge is about the power. Now, to make 1 kg of green hydrogen, we have to spend close to $4 to $5 odd, and 70% of the power is required, to make 1 kg of hydrogen. So power is where I think the which is actually the lead domino, and which is actually has to be curtailed down with the current prices of 2.5 to 3 odd rupees per unit, and which is actually not round the clock power. That is, from the wind and from the solar, it is only 25 odd percent. So we need round the clock power. For that, the only answer for us is thermal, and then on the greener side it is hydro, or we have the pump hydro. So IoT, basically Internet of Things, so far as the green hydrogen is concerned, we see a role to play in terms of the electrolyzers, where we see a maturity of the technology, where the readiness level, it can help us to how the membrane, the metal of construction, the membrane can play an important role, and how the integration of the electrolyzer. First domino is going to be the power, second is going to be the electrolyzers. First plunge can be, if the low hanging fruit or the quick wins will be how we can reduce our CO2 emissions. So there I see a lot of digitalization, the Internet of Things can play a major role. Right now, for next 2 to 3 years, our main focus will be to go for the low hanging fruits, like in terms of how we reduce the coke, how we can use the biomass in the blast furnace, how we can sort of use the carbon that is being emitted, how we can capture that and make into valuable chemicals, how we can use it, we go biological to make more biomass, or how we can use that CO2, how we can inject the CO2 into the mine. With this green hydrogen mission, government of India is playing an important role in terms of giving the wheeling charge, the transmission charge is absolutely free for 25 years. So that is actually important aspect. That is one part. Second part is about the maturity of the technology. So globally, we have seen that there are no plants being implemented or commissioned purely based on green hydrogen. So we have to see that in next 4 to 5 odd years, there are plants coming up in Scandinavian countries, and we have to see the maturity of the technology. I think seeing that, and with these low hanging fruits, I think we are absolutely good to go.
Because of this climate changes and everything else, the role of IoTs and devices to capture the emissions, to actually measure what you are emitting, is also going to be very, very important, and that will drive some of the innovations in this sector.
Start with consumer. So probably, like, I will just throw some light on like how the consumer demand is changing in India, and how that is leading to the change in the factory, and like how other organizations and the industry is evolving per se. So we are a young country actually, the average age of 27 years, far younger than many of the developed countries across the world. Digital adoption, even for that matter, say digital payments, we have surpassed China and many other countries. We have even the internet adoption for that matter. So now, what that is actually leading to is changing in the consumer behavior and fast adoption of certain technologies. When I talk about the consumer demand changing, or probably on the demand sensing side of it, so one is on the trends, second is on the frequency, and third is on the expectation.
I think you mentioned a very critical point, which was demand sensing. And there we are seeing that, well, we are talking about more like a sentient supply chain, where the supply chain is so flexible that it can look at all the trends and look at all the new things which are happening in the external world, or even the disruptions, and then it can quickly adapt itself. What has been your experience, and would you like to share some of your perspectives on this subject, please?
I would like to take a step back and talk about the problems of the factories which exist today. One of the basic problems a factory faces today is demand. They don't have visibility of demand, whether they would be running their factories 3 months later, or at what capacity. Or even if there is some predictability about demand, managing the inventory, production on time are certain issues which a factory faces. So you need to have a play, or you need to have a partner who is able to solve all this. To what Zetwerk is doing today, solving the problems of the factory, and then probably building this factory to become factory of a future. Factories need to be lean in future, lean on cost, lean on time, and lean on probably inventory. Production has to happen at the best possible price so that efficiencies are there. And third, managing inventory. What our experience with these factories, working with so many factories and at our end as well, is there's a huge mismatch between the requirement, inventories, consumables, parts, which goes into this manufacturing. There's always a lag that leads to a lot of inefficiencies. If a factory is able to solve these three things through leveraging tech, that becomes factory of a future for us. And another attribute which I think a factory should have is as close to 100% FTR, first time right. So if through tech, if through IoT, if we are able to solve about quality and ensure that we are reaching or hitting that index of 100% FTR, that to us is factory of future. We are in an era of cloud computing, storing data on cloud. I think today we exist in a time where this is cloud manufacturing as well. Again, talking about Zetwerk, we work with more than 5,000 SMEs in the background, and we take so many orders from our customer. However, we don't have so many factories. We are offering this cloud manufacturing solution to our customers, that you give me order, I am your supplier, but I am managing so many factories at the background. You as a customer will never know what the factory is, where the factory is, how things are getting manufactured, but you are getting your goods on time, with quality, at best prices. So this is one of the trends which is present today and probably would be scaling up. And another trend, this customization and all. I think a lot of factories are designed for scale. Low mix, high volume. But with this fast fashion, probably taking from consumer goods, taking from apparel and all, there's a trend of high mix, low volume. Multiple mix but very low volume. You can have huge factories, but it has to be designed in a manner that it runs in a very, very agile manner. When you have batch production, small batches shifting from one batch to another, a factory has to cater to that. So that is one of the thing I think we would be seeing in the future. We as Zetwerk are part of this trend. We are working in this particular fashion.
Logistics plays a very, very important role, whether it is about inbound or outbound. In a country like India, where the logistics cost is traditionally has been on the higher side, as opposed to some of the other advanced countries, there is always a room for improvement, always a room for optimization, and also a necessary ingredient in the overall growth of our country. You have been a veteran looking at multiple aspects of public sector and private sector in the with the railways and now with Pipavav. Would be great to hear from you what kind of innovations you are seeing, what kind of new trends you are looking at for a country like ours.
Railways itself, I would say that in its last 150 years of history, has changed and moved from one technology to another. We started off with steam, and electric traction, which started off in a small way again in around the 1950s or slightly earlier. And now we have transformed into a completely electrified railway organization where 100% electric traction is the goal, and we are soon going to achieve it. Next change is soon going to be towards hydrogen. In the next 10-15 years, a large number of trains in India will also be start running on hydrogen. Railway is also another factory. We are into the business of transportation, and this factory, if I may use the word, is used for transporting men and material. 2 million people who are doing their reservations are not having to go to the station, they are doing it sitting at home. I think that contributes to the environment, to sustainability, and that is how we are going to, move forward further. And as far as logistics is concerned, basically the challenge is that for first mile and last mile logistics, we have to reduce the costs. Only road has the advantage of providing door to door delivery, and to that extent, first mile and last mile logistics challenges are generally not there in the case of road transport. Otherwise, whether it is railway, air, ocean transport, inland transport, coastal shipping, everywhere you have challenges of first mile and last mile connectivity. And you will often find that while for a major portion of the segment in which a freight item is traveling, the charge may be X, but for last mile and first mile, it would be another X plus X, making it 3X. National logistics policy will hopefully contribute to the phased reduction in the logistics costs in India.
We all realize that factory of the future or smart manufacturing cannot happen without smart logistics.
Information technology has played a very big role in bringing down the costs of logistics, and it will continue to play that role.
When I was sitting and thinking about the factory of the future, since I was also looking after the projects in IDC, I thought, let me first picture what is a dream factory, right? Because we normally tend to go from wherever we are. But if I were to build a factory, I will construct it using the most sustainable techniques in construction, which we don't, by the way, right now, right? I will make sure the factory is authorized only to use green power, which some of you will manufacture. And I'll make sure that I use only green steel, okay? So that, because those are important elements to be brought in. And then the factory in its construction is water neutral, carbon neutral, plastic neutral. And also, when we talk about sustainability, another area which I used to look after, I have to make sure that all the workforce which are there, I think example some people gave that people stay close by, idea is to make sure transportation reduces. So those are all elements of sustainability and then I will make sure that the factory complies with scope 1, 2, and 3. All of us in our factories which have been built or we are from the past, we are having great difficulty in capturing data. Because all these IoTs, AI, ML is possible only when there is only one single moment of truth. I'm looking at 5 trends, new materials. Nanotechnology, someone referred to graphene, nanotechnology, composites. Then the second trend which I'm seeing is product design using rapid prototyping techniques. That's another new trend. Manufacturing technologies, I talked about adaptive, metal injection molding. You get the final product. There are no bolts, nothing. I think Boeing would perhaps know it. We are only learning it right now. Then IT, I think we all talked about big data, etc. And then business models, circular economy has to be embedded. So there are 5 trends which I see at a global level which are happening. Our ecosystem of manufacturing is not the 8 people or the 10 people sitting around this table. Our ecosystem is those 10,000, 20,000 SMEs. How do we support them? Because if India has to move forward, if Make in India, Make for India has to happen, it has to happen through the 10,000 such SMEs.
Factory of the future is that all of these islands have to come together. So, they have to connect, they have to collaborate with each other, and they have to communicate with each other.